Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Learn With Me stream. My name is Ashley. I am a connection evangelist for NVIDIA Omniverse. And in this stream, my foster dog is very happy that I'm talking. In this stream, I go over workflows that are new to me in Omniverse and see how different tools and connectors can help me accelerate that workflow. I like to highlight the NVIDIA Omniverse community and how active we all are and how we help each other out. So with that, if you see me struggling, and even if you don't know the answer, if you have something to suggest for me to look into to help me move forward, feel free to put in the chat and we'll figure out some stuff together. Before I move on, since my foster dog is so happy, I'm going to show her off. This is her. Her name is Rosie. I do have a dog named Rosie, so she's the second Rosie in the house. She's very cute. And yeah, I just wanted to share that because for those who watch my show regularly, you know I have foster dogs all the time. And I usually have, or typically lately I've had a puppy. I keep getting puppies, and my dogs are older in my house and they don't seem to like when I get puppies. Puppies are a little too chaotic for them. She's not a puppy. She's very chill. So my dogs are happy and everyone is having a nice little nap. This is, Jen's like, is this a new one? Yes, it is a new one. My last puppy was a Jack Russell Terrier. Loved her to death. If I had time in my life and not so many dogs, I probably would have kept her because I really did like her, but she was insane. I took her on a 1.5 mile walk and she was still super high energy. So she went to go live on a farm in Central Florida where this woman shows and jumps horses. So she's got 5 acres to run around in. So that puppy is living her best life. And then this little girl was owner surrendered to Miami-Dade shelter, and that's a really crazy shelter. So I'm just happy that I can take her into my house and she'll find a home that'll be a forever home for her. So yeah, that's my new foster dog. So before we get started today, I wanted to share the calendar. If you don't have this calendar on your calendar, you are missing all the cool stuff. If you click add to calendar, I'll put that link in the chat for you. This will connect it to whatever calendar you want it to. It doesn't block out your day, so you can still see all of the rest of your schedule, but it lets you know when NVIDIA Omniverse community is hosting streams like this or jams or whatever we're doing in the Omniverse community. So stuff like mine, Eric's engineering, design, and Omniverse streams, Maddie's when he comes back, his code with me and his developer hours or his developer office hours, and stuff like today, what you need to know about the new Unity connector for Omniverse. That is coming on after I am on. For me, it's 1:08 right now, and they come on at 2:00 Eastern time. So don't miss that. I'll be ending a little bit early today so that you guys can go take a water break and then come back and watch that live stream. Super cool. Unity connectors come out of early access, and now it's accessible to everyone. So everything you need to know about it coming up after me. And then a big thing. Eric is on the stream. Eric, I'm going to add you in. I see you popped in. So this is a special treat. Let's see how I can get my face out of here. Push me back to the tab. Add Eric to the stream, and we'll pull us up. Eric, I'm not sure if your mic's working. If you're talking, I can't hear you.
No, I'm not talking. I am now. Can you hear me?
There you are. Yes, I can hear you. Yes, awesome. Eric, you joined the stream. Thank you. So Eric Kraft is with Meet and Hunt, and you've probably seen him in the chat before. He's been really great in the community to helping people and answering their questions, and then making his own cool stuff too. And he has been helping me in my stream by grabbing the scenes that I've been making and then trying to find a solution for detecting collisions in OmniGraph. And he shared with me an OmniGraph that he made that was way better than even the behavior script that I made with the Python scripting. So Eric, I'm gonna pull that up, and then we could talk about how you made it, what you're inspired by, and then we can start rebuilding it in my scene. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. Did you want to introduce yourself and do any shout outs before we get started?
No, I think you kind of covered it all.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, with the limited time today, I'm like trying to speed rocket through everything. All right. So I have yours up here, Eric. I'm going to pull the action graph up. Oh, first let's demonstrate it. Before we actually show the graph, let's see it working in action. And this is a live stream, so fingers crossed this actually works. So let's press play. We have our counter here at the top, and 4 boxes hit the pallet. We have 6 in total, but only 4 are on the pallet. So it counted 4. And then a cool thing is if I grab one of the boxes that are on the pallet and then move it over, my viewport UI is blocking my translate. So let's do it with this here. Let's move it off the pallet. There we go. Now it says only 3. So Eric has been able to use the physics action graph to detect when the box is on the pallet and then when it moves off. And I'm so impressed by it. So let's go ahead and take a look. I feel like a radio host saying that.
Yeah, and the big thing with this, it was actually just me playing around, I was actually looking into, is there a way we can track the velocity or something? And I found the physics graph inside the extension. So the big thing is, to be able to do this, you need to enable the physics graph inside the extension window.
Oh yeah, let's take a look at that. I did show that before in like a previous stream. So let's look at it again. In the extensions manager, which in Create you have to enable by going to Window and going down to extensions, and then it'll pop up. You type in physics, probably be more specific, we'll do physics graph. And this is disabled, so you have to make sure you enable it. And then I just have it set to auto load so that I can always find it in my action graph. So this is going to be very important to what Eric's talking about.
Yeah, and with that, it's going to actually create 2 additional categories down there. You can see OmniPhysics Query and OmniPhysics Vehicles. What we're actually going to be using is the physics queries.
Oh yeah, look at that.
And from that, we're using the overlap box all. So basically what we are doing, if you want to pan over to the right and find the hidden node. So what overlap box all does is basically you define a box of a size, define a position or rotation, and then it returns an array of all colliders that intersect with that box. So what you can't see is there's basically a virtual box sitting on top of the pallet, and it's calculating every box with a collider inside of that virtual box. One other big note on this is it counts every collider. So by default, whenever you add the rigid body to the actual boxes, the cube box, it actually generates a collider on every single mesh below the payload. So what I ended up doing is keeping the collider on the body object and then removing it from the decal and the scotch object to ensure that it only counted 1 collider within the box. Otherwise, you would have to do some math and divide the total number by however many colliders you have. I felt this was the easier way to go about it. So.
And then we also discovered that even though you don't have a collider on the decal and the scotch mesh, because you have the rigid body and the collider on the cube box parent X form, everything kind of holds together. The scotch and the decal don't go flying away, which is cool.
Or if they did, we did not see it.
Oh yeah, no, it looks like they're there. I see the scotch tape. The scotch tape is this thing here, and then I don't know where the decal is, but I'm sure it's still in the box.
Yep.
Yeah, it looks like it's there. So before we move forward, Zia asked a really good question. How big is the virtual box? And will it count any type of prim?
It will not count any type of prim because it is a part of physics. It's only counting the collider. And while it has body prim paths and collider prim paths, from my initial testing, those values are exactly the same. There's no difference between the results you get out of either one.
Yeah, great point. Thanks, Zia, for asking that question. All right, so want to look at how you got started on it?
Sure. And now for some of the fun dynamic things that I did with this. So if you want to start on the far left with the read prim attribute. So here I'm actually pulling the extent of the geometry mesh of the palette object. So this is a mesh property. And what the extent does is it defines, scroll up, you passed
Did I miss it?
Yep, right
there it is.
So the extent kind of defines the bounding box of all the mesh vertices within the object. So this is the general size of the object. And in this case, it's like -50, -60, 0, 50, 60, and then like 14.5 or something like that. So basically this defines the size of that mesh object. So I'm reading that in and subtracting the minimum value from the maximum value. And what that's going to do is give us the total size of that extent. From there, I have another read prim. And what this is reading is the scale from the payload object, so that if you were to scale the palette payload, it's going to increase the size of the box associated with that, so that it's always the size of that box. From there, I'm using a breakout 3 vector, and the reason I'm doing this is because the size of the virtual box, the dimensions you supply and the dimensions are half plus, half minus of what the values are. So if in the case of our box, it's 100 by 120 by 14, if I supply the position of the actual palette, it's going to be from that position point plus and minus 50 on the X, plus and minus 60 on the Y, and then plus and minus 14 on the Z. Well, we want to actually push that up because because the palette has a collider, it's going to include that in the count, which we really don't care about. But 2, we want to move it up to associate for the difference in those values, so that's kind of sitting on top of the palette with what we need. So that's what the constant float is there for. And that's basically multiplying the Z vector by 2 and then building a new vector 3 of 0x, 0y, and the new Z value. And then we're going to add that back in to the value of the translation of our palette. So now we've got our box offset by the proper value that we need, so that it's floating exactly on top of the palette. From there, I'm supplying the dimension from what we previously calculated, the position and the rotation of the box. So again, it's completely connected to the palette box. And then I'm simply getting the array size that the overlap box all is supplying. And that's giving us the count of the objects on top. And that's what I'm using in Ashley's original write prim attribute to supply the collected, which is then read by the UI, viewport UI action graph that she previously created.
I mean, this is the most impressive thing. And we had been talking about using the physics overlap box, but I had no idea how to grab anything out of it. So using the get array size, that's awesome. And this is so cool. I love that when the box comes out of it, it adjusts it because it's reading that array. So it actually works better than that behavior script that I had been making before, because before, even if the box got hit by something else and fell off the palette, it didn't adjust that size. So I wonder if we could go back and actually kind of mimic this. We can keep playing with this and going back and forth between auction graph and in the behavior script and whatever one someone wants to use, they kind of work in the same way. But I really like this. It seems like so straightforward and so simple, and it works wonderfully. It's very consistent. That was a big thing we were talking about last stream, is like the consistency. We wanted to make sure that every time we ran play, it worked, and it does.
Right. And again, it simply does because there's nothing in the box to start with. And then once it runs, what you'll see is they'll actually start counting just before boxes hit. And you'll actually get 6, but the 2 that fall out of that box area.
Yeah.
So you'll briefly see 6 on there as they're falling through that box. But you could go in, and this accounts for boxes that also stack. So if you were to stop it and go actually move the boxes on top of each other, if they're stacked, it'll still count them. Again, it depends on the size and the location of that virtual box. If they're in the box, it gets counted. If they're not in the box, then basically it gets removed from the array, and therefore the count changes.
Cool. The only bummer is that this viewport UI, since it's in scripted mode, I can no longer grab these little things. But I guess if I adjust them before, I want to see what it looks like when they're stacked on top of one another. Set on top of the other one. I think that might work. Let's try that. Whatever. Nope. So you said something very interesting to me yesterday about how when you were playing around with this, like what kind of concept you were thinking of when you were creating it. Can you share that?
Yeah, so when I originally started looking at it, I was looking at velocity. So if the boxes are, and that's a more advanced version we could use, is all right, if the boxes are moving, then they're still falling. If their velocity goes really low or to 0, we know it's landed and stopped moving. Then you can do the count. But the other thing is I looked at this of how would I do this in other applications? And I've done some programming in Unity, and inside of Unity, you have a concept of enter and exit triggers. So as something goes into, again, a virtual box, it counts it. When it leaves, it removes it from the state. That's in essence what's happening here. And what I try to do when I come up with a concept or an idea is I try to find another tool that already does it. And a lot of the things that I research and come up with comes from, gaming tools, because they are so similar to how Omniverse operates. Most of those concepts apply. It's just a matter of remapping, what is, the trigger inside of Omniverse. Well, we can use the overlap box in the same trigger state. It's not triggering if something's entering or exiting. It's simply saying if something's inside of this, give me the number of those objects.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great way to approach something. Just think about how you would do it in a different application and how it can be applied in Omniverse. So really great advice. Couple questions if you have time, Eric.
Sure.
I know you're a little strained. You're in the office today, right?
Yep.
All right. So Zia had another question. If there's a hole in the prim, like a donut, does the extent treat the interior hole?
No, because the extent is kind of like a virtual bounding box that you'll see in Blender or 3ds Max or something like that. It's the extent of all vertices. So it's basically what is the lowest vertex in X, Y, and Z, what is the highest vertex in X, Y, and Z, and that's it. It's basically a closed box volume, and it accounts for all vertices within that of the mesh.
Cool. And then I think this one is pretty straightforward. Can we make the virtual invisible box visible? I don't think we can, because it's just I
thought about that possibly, but I need to do some research. I'm thinking possibly you just create a cube object, assign a material, have some sort of toggle for seeing that box, because a cube object is built the same way. We just have to figure out what are the ratios to associate the dimension value with, a cube box. Because the same thing, the position is center, your actual size is plus and minus, it's not from the bottom, it's from the middle. So there are ways to do that. I just need to figure out how to create and toggle on a quick cube object. So thought about that, just haven't gotten to it yet.
Okay, next challenge. He also asked and toggle that attribute for visual clarification. So I guess for debugging.
Yeah. We could probably just create another virtual UI button that whenever you click this, it turns it on. Whenever it's in the off state, the visibility is not there, and just you would pass in that value into a branch inside of the actual script, and that would define whether the dimension box is actually shown or not.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna kind of import this into my warehouse scene and see if I can get it working in there, because I would really love to wrap up this warehouse scene. Eric, are you gonna hang out?
Yeah, I will hang out. You can feel free to take over everything. And remember, guys, you can also find me on the Discord server. So if you have any more questions, Zia, feel free to ask there. Maybe create a thread about this, and then we can work from there.
Yeah, that would be awesome if we can kind of extend this forward. I know there's a lot more things we can do with it. And then I wanted to answer Vincent's question, because I was having this issue, and I don't know if anyone else does. So while the sim is running, can you hold shift to interact with the boxes and stack them? I can't. I've never. Oh, never mind. What? That just made me out to be the biggest liar. Jen, if you are still in the chat, you are my witness to this. Yesterday I was complaining that I could not hold shift, and now look, now it won't do it.
Click on it first.
Click on it first and then hold shift. So you're supposed to be able to, like, if you saw real quick when I did it before, there like that little green slime thing came out of it. It reminds me of slime for some reason, probably because it's light green. And you're able to like physically move them. And I was for a quick second. My Omniverse has never been able to do it. And I was telling this to Jen yesterday, like, I don't know what's up with my Omniverse specifically, but I've never been able to do it. And it did it for a split second.
Well, try holding shift and then clicking, maybe?
Maybe click and then shift? Nope. I tried both, and I don't have sticky keys on. So.
Did you try the other shift key?
Yes, I have done that. I don't know. It worked for that split second. That's the first time I've ever seen it work. Jen said, did you restart your computer? Yeah, I restarted my computer, but it never works. It's, I don't know, wild. Yeah, live stream for the win. It's like Bigfoot walks when no one's watching. Yeah, I hope someone caught that. Look, it works. See? It works it's inconsistent for me. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's my keyboard. Maybe it's my mechanical keyboard. But yeah, this is fun. This is my favorite thing to do when it works. You can be able to grab. So let's see if we can stack it on another box without it going crazy. It's like a claw machine game.
Well, and as you can see, because it is that virtual box, so if you lift it up high enough, its count will go to 3, and as you get closer to it, the count will go to 4.
Yeah.
So again, it's not a perfect solution because it's not truly counting what's interacting, but it does give you a quick way that you can do some calculations on things intersecting with the volume.
Which is so cool. All right, let's go ahead and see if we can throw this into my scene. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just download it, and then we'll just adjust in the scene. So we'll click download. It's probably much better than trying to just go and recreate it from scratch. Save selected. I was looking for download. I'm going to throw that in my folder here, and we'll call this Eric Crafts Awesome Solution. And we'll click save. All right, let's, in my other, I have another instance of Omniverse open. I came prepared today. Let's delete where this is the counter one. Let's delete this one. And we'll throw Eric's Awesome Solution in. Open that graph. Let's go into our visual scripting layout. All right, so let's see, we just have to change our targets. And this one is the palette, but it's the mesh because we have to look at the extent attribute, right? Which is
That's correct. Yep, down right there.
There it is. All right, and then this one is the palette Xform payload, and it's the scale Xform OP, that one. Okay, this one, the target is the same. We're writing to block palette, and I'm pretty sure that attribute should still be there. Yes, it is. All right. You know, it should work.
It should.
Gonna count the. Hope
your
it doesn't
count will probably be off. Go ahead and start it.
I'm wondering if it's going to count the conveyor belt.
Probably not, because the conveyor belt's not on top of the palette.
To the side. Well, I pressed play, and let's hope it's not crashing, because it's not doing anything. I'm scared to click. You know when you click and it's like tells it's not responding? Yep, there you go. Okay, let's just hope it doesn't crash. I guess if it does, we'll just use the other instance of create a have open. Oh, there we go. Didn't work. Oh, do I have a collider on my package? Let's see.
You should.
I'm pretty sure I do. I have the rigid body.
It's gonna be on the it's gonna be on the mesh because it actually collided.
I do have a collider. Oh, and I probably have multiple colliders. Let's get rid of this one. But it still didn't register these.
Go check go back over for your local to world transform and make sure.
Oh, my input prim wasn't added.
Let's add that. Yeah.
And so Control A, Control C.
You shouldn't need the prim path.
Oh, you don't?
No, you can uncheck that. That's only used if you check use path. If you don't use path, they use the add target value.
Ah,
so
good to
it
know.
Should work now.
All right, press play. It has to think for a second. Yeah, Zia said start a new box because it has no scripts on it. I took all the scripts off in this scene. So in my GitHub, I have two scenes now. I have one where all the scripts are on it, and then one warehouse scene where it's just the action graph. So this one is just the action graph. And then Zia asked, how long did it take to figure this all out for the action graph, Eric?
It was a couple hours Tuesday evening. Now we have to figure out why it's not working.
It's always this warehouse scene. Everything always works fine until we get to the warehouse scene.
Let's go back down. Clear your prim path because it's not liking something down there.
Let's just check that everything is. Well, let's check to see if the actual, like maybe the viewport UI is not grabbing. Let's look at the actual attribute.
Clear the collected, yeah, because I had that problem before too. That's
0.
0.
Press play.
At least you have some nice elevator music.
Yeah, that is why I try to have the music in the background for like the little lull moments. It's not just like complete quiet or my dog's barking in the background. All right, create. If you speak nicely to it, it won't crash. That's how I feel about my car. If I speak nicely to it, I won't have to put a couple thousand into it. All right, so it is not registering. But what I'm not sure is this collected attribute was created from the script and then I removed the script. So let's just like try recreating it.
Because you manually picked that, so it should have been correct.
Yeah, we're gonna call this collected. That's an integer. Just make sure.
So that's got a value. Check.
I wonder why it takes so long to load with play. Yeah, if we can't get this to work, then we'll try it on a other simple warehouse scene, maybe. Because it could just be this scene in general. There's a lot going on in it. Nope. Is all of this running?
That dimension looks really small.
Wait, it does
go
say
back. No, go back to the overlap. Yeah. So step back through there because the dimension is way. I think it's way too small. No. Because your extent should be the same. It could be.
Look, it says the value of our scale is 0.02. But I think that's. I did have to scale down the palette because it came in so ginormous.
Wait, is your mesh moved? That's part of the problem. Didn't you have some issues because it's all being placed based off the position, the actual position of that object? So the box is over there in the corner.
Oh yeah, that's right. My origin. Look, these are all weird. What? How? I thought I could fix that with like the pivot, but oh, and then it throws my box over there. Okay, we'll just. Where's my box? Let's that fix it? Yeah, I don't know what's up with this scene and my pivot's all wrong. So that's
go check your meshes. Make sure your meshes are all. See, reset that.
It doesn't have a reset option.
Just hit the blue boxes.
Oh. Let's see if the other one has the same thing. Nope.
No. Maybe remove the transforms.
Of all of these?
Yeah.
Delete. Oops.
Yeah, you've got some weirdness going on here. That's what's causing the issue is because of the offset of the actual.
I'm just gonna delete this box and we're gonna just go in and get a new one.
No, the box was fine. It's the palette that's off.
The palette's off too.
Yep.
Oh, yep. Look at that. Which is weird.
Because the geometry subset, I don't think those have any values.
It's so yeah. There's something going on because when I try to use the pivot tool to center the pivot, it doesn't. It like moves everything out of the way. I remember that we had that quite a few streams ago, and I never fixed it. All right. Well, let's go. Let's go and test it in my like other scene. I think I had. Which one was it? I think it was my test here. I guess it would be the same thing as you did. How would I fix that pivot of the palette? I just pull in a new palette? Just reset it?
Maybe?
Let's try.
Yeah, delete that one.
So I'd really love to get it working here. There's shipping, I think. Let's do this palette. And it's super large. See how when I scale it down, the pivot doesn't like adjust with it?
Yeah, you've got some weird transform offset going on with that.
I wonder why. Is the conveyor belts are the same? It kind of seems to be. Does the world have issues? Nope. Someone asked, Zia asked, can this script work with an XORM versus a prim? Like the action graph, do you mean, Zia? I think it has to be.
Well, so the actual box needs to, or the object going into the virtual box has to have a collider on it. So it needs to be a mesh because that's what's actually counting is the collider. Now, one thing I did think about doing, again, going back to video games, is moving like the collected attribute off the box and putting it more into a game manager or a object manager X form, so that you're detaching some of that information from the box, so that if you delete the box, you're not having to rebuild that. But you definitely have some weird stuff going on here.
Yeah, I don't know how to fix it either. Even when I bring it, even if I like just try to adjust the pivot translate on its own, it adjusts the whole entire thing.
Go to the actual mesh object under it. See, I'm wondering if there's a script on there, because I don't think the bodies or bolts have anything, but you could check.
I don't think it has a script because I removed the one that I did have scripts on and brought in a new one.
Well, we'll figure it out and get something working
at
some point.
So we're running out of time. I'm going to start wrapping things up here so that the community stream about the Unity connector can pop on. Eric, thank you so much for hopping in today and then sharing with everybody how you made that action graph, and at least we demonstrated it working. Now what I'm going to do moving forward is just try to fix this seam so that I can upload it to GitHub, and this will be a great sample for people to kind of bounce off of if they want to do any similar behaviors, either in action graph or Python scripting. So that's what we're going to do next. But next week, I am going to be starting a SIM-ready asset workflow. So if you watched Bo's SIM-ready asset GTC session, we'll be diving into something similar where we'll start with the Maya connector. We'll model a real-world asset and get it ready to be a SIM-ready asset in Omniverse. So we'll learn how to do that together because I've never done it before, and I really liked how Bo explained it. So that's next. All right. Thank you again, Eric. I'm going to end the broadcast, and we'll see you all on Monday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Bye.